Hi, Liam O'Gogan here. Welcome back to the Does It Matter Research Programme episode on my conversation with Val McBride, the Assistant Principal Officer of the Central Statistics Office on the 18th of April last. So this is the third and final part of the recording, and at this point I've just been asking Val to explain to me how he says here on his letter to me, please be assured that the letter issued to you and that it issued to the correct address. So I was asking, how can he stand over that? So listen.
How can you be sure of that?
Because when Marcella was sending it out in the post, she says, I'm putting the letter in the post now, and I said, that's grand. She told me she was putting it out, and she did.
So again, that's the introduction to the third part. This is make it up as you go along stuff. That's my lived experience. That's what I believe, guys.
No, but okay. Can I just say, hold on. If you were, I'm asking you again I'm asking you to put yourself in my shoes. Hold on. I'm giving you an assurance that I did this, or I told Marcella to do this. After the experiences that I've had with you people, you're giving me this assurance, and you're telling me that my doubts on this assurance are unfounded. I mean, do you not see that you're perhaps a little bit too close to this? I mean, would you believe that if somebody else was telling you that, like, about your situation?
Would I believe what now, then?
Look, you've told me a story. If somebody were to tell you the same story about something that you were on the other side of that, right? I'm just wondering, would you find that as believable as you expect me to find it?
But when you say believable, you don't believe the letter went out at all. Is that what you're saying?
No, I've never said that. I'm saying
that
the information, of course, but I'm saying the explanations that I am being given aren't credible. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair enough then. I'm sorry if you don't find them credible, but
I don't want you to be sorry. I want you to provide me with credibility, and that's done through processes.
Yeah, okay.
No, so what you're saying to me is that the only record you people keep of sending a letter is that Marcella says to you, I'm putting this in the post now, and that makes it true.
No, there's a copy of the letter. There's a copy of the letter.
Okay, so, but as we now find out, the copy of the letter doesn't contain whatever was supposed to have been sent out to me. It only contains part of it.
Yeah.
The piece that's missing, do you think that in terms of me interrogating or evaluating what I've been given, that would help me, do you?
Do I think it would help you?
Well, sorry, when I say help me, I don't mean it be on my side. I meant, would it help give me a greater perspective of which to evaluate if I was given these further notes?
Do I think that would? I honestly don't know.
Well, would it assist my understanding of the record that I've been given?
I suppose I would hope it would, but I can't say definitely. Yes, I would hope so.
Well, we would expect that it would, and so would I.
Yeah.
Right? And therefore, I find now that it's missing. You see, that's a part of the data set that I can't look at, and in fact, I can't reasonably even ask you. I mean, it might have said, this guy is a bollocks, we're not giving him the job. I don't know, but I don't think you know. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because you never saw it.
No.
But I do think it's reasonable that if Marcella saw it.
Yeah,
she had it.
I would say that's fair enough, yeah.
So I would be interested in knowing what, at least, I mean, in a sense it's hearsay because she can't produce it, but it leaves me sitting there saying, I'm trying to interrogate a system. It turns out that it's very suitable for the system that this data is missing. That's all. It's very suitable for the system. The other thing that's been suggested to me that somebody called Tony Downs is going to carry out a process.
Yes.
It's been suggested to me that he's been independently chosen or otherwise. No, he has never responded to me. I've asked him for his remits. I've asked him for an explanation of what he's doing. So he appears to be anything other than independent from my perspective. But more importantly, I don't know what he's going to interrogate. I don't know what he's going to review. Is he going to add up my marks and see if they get to 300? I mean, I understand what a reviewing exam paper results are. I mean, if it's just adding up the marks, I mean, that's why, I mean, whatever we're doing, we should say what we're doing and stand over that. But I hope nobody's going to suggest to me this is some sort of quality review. How can he review this? Now, I do think, for me to have a proper, open and transparent evaluation, what needs to be done is that all the marks given to everybody at that interview, I believe I should be given availability. I believe the personal identifiers of any of those people should be redacted, so that any information left there does not specify an individual, right? Now, could you see any reason why I wouldn't be given that information?
As a result of Tony's review?
No, I'm talking as a result of talking to you. Why wouldn't I be given that, for example?
Well,
I mean, I'm saying specifically, I am talking here about anything which identifies an individual.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for that. So, for example, if one of the marks said, this person had only one leg, well, I think, that would be obvious, okay?
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not even saying, well, you could say she, he, she, but I presume there's a gender neutrality in that, so I can't imagine that would identify someone. But what it would help to do is if you people are really in the business of being able to say, we can stand over our process, then I think you should have known that you should be coming in with open hands in this situation. We'll make this information available. Absolutely. You should be inviting me to say, look, challenge our system, make it as robust as possible, because it's in your interest. I said from the outside, if when we finish this process, I am absolutely clear that I have been treated fairly, having robustly challenged the system, I will be one of the happiest citizens in this country. Do you accept that?
I do.
Okay. Now, we're a long way from that, and I'm only asking to be supported. I mean, would you like the outcome to also support your belief that the system is of the highest quality?
I would.
Therefore, I believe we should have a collaborative approach towards doing this. And I'm wondering, why don't we seem to be in collaboration? I have spent weeks in a hands teeth business with you people, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's been a misunderstanding of what my objectives are, even though I said from the very outset in my initial conversation with Marcella, but what I was interested in. I was interested in interrogating the process to reassure myself that this country was safe, right? I think as public servant, that's your role as well. I think as a citizen, that's my responsibility too. Now, I'm asking in doing that, to have your support in doing that. So I'd be asking you, for example, all of the marks for everybody else. In fact, I look at my marking scheme and there's absolutely not a word on it which in any way identifies me. Not a word, not a single word in it which identifies me. There's nothing in my marking scheme which would identify me.
Yeah.
Okay? So I have to presume, unless I was treated differently than everybody else, I have to presume there's nothing in anybody else's marking scheme which addresses them or identifies them. Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, what I would be asking you is to reflect on and consider your willingness to put, now, because we're missing a piece of information. One of the things, for example, see these official notes, you call them. Yeah. For every other client, there would be an official note in the marking scheme.
Yeah.
And if we could show that the relationship, the generality of the relationship between how there is a transmission of the larger generalized note down to the marking scheme note, and that there is accuracy and consistency in that, right? Then we could then reverse engineer my notes to the general notes. We could work by reverse engineering what's on my notes to what would have been in the generality. Would you accept that proposition?
I'll be honest with you, Liam, we won't get far with this. I won't be able to give you anything other than we've already given you.
So this is really important. I've spent at this stage an hour and 10 minutes talking to this guy, and he is simply blanking himself to the possibility of opening his mind to anything. He's just saying there's nothing else we want to be able to give you. I mean, he's just overloaded with negativity. That's all that's going on here. I've tried my best. Now I know it. The only reason I could not sustain this effort if it were not because I'd committed myself back in early 2012 to try and follow this thread of research, this research question of does it matter, and to try and collect reproducible, auditable, traceable data where one could evaluate the behaviours of various people in this service delivery environment, and particularly in the interaction between a vulnerable citizen or individual isolated person and power systems. And yet again, I'm just reminded of how my stomach is tightened this morning by that fearful threat of €100,000 fines for trying to serve the public interest by exposing disgraceful and systemic breaches or a breach of census personal data by our Central Statistics Office. But yet, even in trying to work logically through things with a senior public servant here, there's just a complete blankness of the possibility of even looking inward and and re-examining their own philosophies, their data, their structures, their procedures. Not an inch. There hasn't been an inch of movement from the 24th of February until the 17th of May in relation to the substantial element of my query.
No, but well, you see, you have to make these decisions. You make calls yourself internally. I mean, from my point of view, all I'm going to try and do is take this process as deeply and as widely I can to every level. I mean, the reason I wrote to the DG in your organisation to ensure that he is legally cognizant of everything that I'm doing. So at the end of the day, he's not going to be like everybody else up at the top of the system, going walkabouts when there's a problem. I mean, you people are talking about a quality system. I'm challenging it. What you're giving me is ifs, buts and maybes. You're telling me there's no formal procedures. Now, I just want to go on then. This letter that was lost.
I was just when I was thinking that if, buts and maybe some time ago on a radio program, might have been a Joe Duffy show, the guy who blew up Nelson's pillar. And again, he was living in another level of denial. And his response was, if ifs and buts made pots and pans, to be no work for tinkers. Anyway, just can't help but experiencing those little interjections.
I'm told to believe it got lost. I'm told you have no process internally of knowing. There are many a slip twixt cup and lip, and the gap between reality and what's claimed to have happened here is ever increasing. I then asked Marcella, what are you doing about this? Are you checking it up? Am I supposed to check it from my end? And she informed me that she would check him with some administration unit. You've written, Marcella did speak in some detail, with our administration unit about the letter lost in the post. There is no written account of our discussion. So here's a senior official in your organisation working with your cognizance, coming across a problem which both she and you believe is not a problem because you believe you posted the letter, checking with an administration unit in some detail and keeping no records. Am I wrong in my interpretation of what I've been told?
No, that's exactly what happened.
Okay, so again, is this a quality, is this a professional process? No written record. So this is just over a cup of tea, some detail. I mean, this letter's got lost. It must be obvious to you people that I'm going to follow it up.
Absolutely, yeah, no.
So what is it?
You're rightly so, yeah.
No, but did all get the homework and the checking that we've done. This is like Ray Burke, as Dermot Ahern said, Ray Burke climbed every tree in North Dublin to find out whether there was a problem. Remember, Ray? That's what I'm being told here. Marcella would often spoke in some detail with the administration unit about the letter.
What I mean by in some detail is that we hadn't come across this before. We leave a letter in for the post. The letter's posted from here. We wanted to know what happened, and if a letter is not delivered to the address where it was supposed to go, what happens then? So that was the detail that we were on. That she spoke to the administration unit about. So we expected that letter to be returned, and it hasn't been.
Okay, just again update to this is the 17th of May, and that conversation took place on the 18th of April. I have never since that point, before or since that point, ever had any feedback from anybody in the CSO in relation to the outcome of any internal investigation, which may or may not have happened in relation to my where this supposed letter went to, or was it posted or whatever to me. I do have, and I invite you again to listen to my recorded conversation with Magella Lysett, which took place on the 29th, I think, of April. And again, as a video now, in where she alludes to in some way, which becomes a bit watery after I ask her about her hearing or seeing or noting of some internal investigation in relation to this on post. But I have spoken to people with experience in mail delivery in relation to this issue, and they're so, I mean, they set out for me a string of questions which anybody in a half professional scenario would have followed. In terms of this process. Now, I've still, again, I believe I've written to Ken Kennedy, the Customer Relations Officer, about this and sent her a reminder asking for an up-to-date report in relation to this. So nobody's helping me, nobody's giving me any information. I mean, the most we have from Val really is this beautiful little thing about it's a mystery. What did you say here? Yeah, the letter not reaching me is a mystery. You know, it's 2016, it's a post-factual reality in which we've moved God off somewhere to a historical museum or something, and all that's real, but we're in the mystery business. Imagine these guys, the CSO, the statistical organisation that's into mysteries. quantum reality at its best.
So
and there's no written record of anything. I mean, this is how we run the civil service. Like, there's no. I mean, come on. Look at all I'm asking you to think about. Does that seem consistent with what would appear to be any sort of professional investigation into anything?
How do you mean is it consistent?
Well, I mean, which consistent with your expectation of an investigation. Look, to be fair, I'm in your hands. I have very little data. I have only a peek into that which you decide to disclose to me, when, if, and maybe. And I only have it if I keep pushing the envelope. From the very outset, everything I've got has only been because I kept pushing, not because of your willingness to share anything with me. Anything at all. So what I'm at a situation here, I'm saying, look at this letter that the dog, the homework got eaten by the dog. And I'm asking what colour was the dog, where was the dog. How do you even know what happened, and how do you know it's not going to happen again unless somebody somebody did have a detailed discussion with the administration unit, but somebody, it appears, went to no effort to move this from a tacit piece of knowledge in her head into something which might be of evaluation both to the client, customer, that's me, and to you as an organisation to ensure it doesn't happen before. It's not how you investigate things. I mean, that's the question I'm asking.
Well, we would certainly be concerned that in future that anything that was going out like this, that we'd be able to keep track of it. Yeah, I mean,
But this is 2016, and I accept you said that your personal experience, no letter's ever been lost before. But your organisation is not based on your personal experience. That's the difference between tacit knowledge and recorded knowledge.
You know, I'm just listening to that again, and this attempt by him to put his hand somewhere out behind him and pull some answer from a shelf here in an unsupportable situation. I mean, something has gone wrong here, and there's nobody paying attention to the fact that, hey, we got a problem. Houston, we got a problem here. Val is simply not in receive mode. I mean, I can transmit as much as I want, and nothing is sinking in, Val. Val, I'm talking to you here in this video, please. This is not in any way personally focused or led or action towards you, except it is you and me, and it's you are a human being in a business. I mean, do I believe you're behaving with a systemic, DNA driven, cultural, internal, systemic decision or disposition? Yes, I absolutely do. But you know, you're an adult. You have a responsibility as a citizen to stop behaving like this.
I mean, in any organisation that's lasted as long as you people, a letter must have got lost somewhere. Somebody must be. I worked in the railway. I worked in the railway for 6 years. Make sure the last letter in the file is yours asking the question. When I sent a letter out, I recorded the fact that I sent a letter out, so that I'd be able to tell the boss, and he said, where's that letter? There's a record of what I did with the letter. If an investigation came in from an issue, I as an engineer was expected to investigate something and produce a report. That meant something other than me talking to boys over the telephone. I wrote things down. Now, are we in a different post-rational reality?
Yeah.
Does that mean yes, we are, or
no? I know.
Are my expectations unrealistic here? Are they?
No, I don't think they are. No,
I don't think so either. Right, and therefore I think that at the end of the day, you have stressed to me that from your point of view, that you are satisfied the enumerator competition was conducted to the highest possible standard. And the highest possible standard means, the word highest means that is the highest. When you get to the top of the mountain, that means you can't take another step up. So highest possible is 100%. I got 58% in your exam. The person who got first got 96. You are 100%. And I'm asking questions here to which the answers seem to be, well, we didn't write anything down. Now, and I'm asking you to reflect, like, does any of this penetrate the paradigm blindness that I'm experiencing here? Like, at any stage, I've asked you to look at this stuff and say, do we think there could have been, like, for example, have you any possible belief that at any level there could be any failure of highest standards in your enumerator, in 430 enumerator boards? Would you have any doubt there was anything untoward carried out in any of those?
What I would say to you, Liam, is that with 430 interview boards, I would say that I'm sure there was plenty of room for improvement. I mean, I'm at that number of boards and that number of candidates, yeah, I would say, and in that space of time, I'm sure we could have improved.
Okay, I mean, this guy's after writing this at the highest possible standards, and now he's admitting something that I think is patently self-evident. Every human being in the world, that there are shortcomings and everything, but there's no connection between those that complete oxymoron, that complete contradiction of his statement, and then what he witheringly just passes out there. Because you see, once the gap is recognised as existing, and you examine the gap, then you might see how big the gap actually is. You might actually go in with a measuring tape and measure what the shortcoming is.
And because you are statisticians, that would, you'd have to put in, that'd be the first law of statistics, is to recognise errors. Right, so when you tell me the highest, I'm equating the highest with the word in the English language 100%. So, I mean, I was told the highest because it's satisfied. It looked as if it looks good to tell the client, we're happy 100%. It is the highest standard. I'm saying already you're telling me that by definition of statistics, it cannot be the highest. And I'm saying I live in a country where, the Irish Times publishes documents say that 80% of the people in Ireland believe cronyism exists. 80% of these people. And I'm being told here, this doesn't happen. And I have an example of something here that to me smells, stinks of abnormality. And all I'm looking at the moment, I'm only looking at the stats. As you rightfully said, the delivery of, or the disclosure to me by the CSO of personal detail would fundamentally, of the people who participate in this, would fundamentally undermine anybody's trust in the CSO. I think you agreed that, did you?
When do I agree that?
Earlier in the conversation, I said for you, I had specifically said I didn't want personal details, and we agreed on that. And I said if you people were to disclose to me personal details, this would strike at the very heart of the integrity of data within the CSO. You absolutely agree with that, and I absolutely agree with that. Right? Okay. So look, I've gone through those questions. At this stage, I just wanted, I had felt, look, at you taking the time to write to me. I think what I've clarified is that, in fact, although it doesn't appear so from your correspondence, that the stimulus for your actually writing to me at the time may have been at least contemporaneous with the contact that you had from the customer services person official.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't just because it was. That doesn't say that in your email, and given that you pointed out everybody else I've been in contact with, I note that as a significant omission. All right?
Yeah.
The other thing is we've gone through a lot of the detail. I think what you've said to me that the reason you responded to me as against Marcella is that she has been out of the office since the 8th of April, I think.
Yeah.
I questioned whether Marcella would have received queries by me, and specifically in relation to whether who her manager was, because I was, look, we were getting to a point where we weren't getting anywhere there.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, was she aware of this? And in fact, when I asked for your detail, do you believe, as a high executive officer, she would have been aware of her obligation to provide me with your details?
Yeah,
is there any reason there wouldn't have been?
No.
Right.
Sorry, that's interesting, just that statement by him as, assistant principal officer in a government department. Question I've asked him when I asked the higher executive officer, Marcella Joyce, basically to identify her role and to give me her line manager's details. Without having to think twice, he said, I'd be entitled to that without question. Now, if you were to jump across into the parallel process that further developed from this with the data protection officer, with the guy called John Keyes, who again I'm suffering from stress, thinking of how am I going to manage that threat by him, and the person who works for him, a senior investigations officer, Payam Shalchi. And if you listen to that recording that I have with Payam Shalchi, where he continually obfuscates and prevaricates and tries to prevent me finding out the answers to that question. And what does it say about his negative disposition as a public servant towards me and my constitutional rights as a citizen? So it's interesting that, again, I'm calibrating my brain here. Yeah, I'm not wrong. Val even has said, without thinking twice, yeah, you're entitled to that information, like off the cuff. There shouldn't be a problem about that.
And, is there any internal reflection about any of this, about how my experience?
Well, with all due respect, that'll be a matter for ourselves now. Yeah.
No, sorry. But hold on. I'm the dog that's getting kicked around here. To be fair, to be fair, I am not a beta tester for your organisation. I really am insulted by that. It's a matter for you people. If you kick me around the place and you decide to have a collegiate internal meeting at which you decide whether that's kosher or not, I think you need to pay respect here. Am I misinterpreting you here, kid?
I certainly don't mean to be disrespectful to you.
You would be disrespectful to me to suggest to me that you people will internally evaluate this when and if it suits you about how I've been treated, without considering my experience of how I've been treated.
No, I mean, everything will be taken into account in that situation. I mean, we couldn't not take what you have done and said into consideration. Of course, we'd have to take that.
Good.
And include you if that's the case.
Include me in what sense?
If there's any sort of a review or when we look at this.
I mean, this is really watery stuff, guys. If there's any sort of view, maybe, perhaps, sometime if we've nothing else to be doing, maybe. I mean, this is shambolic. What I have given evidence of in this and the correspondence I provided in the number of video recordings, or the videos of recordings that I have produced, and my real attempt, you know, to stick with the objective of the Does It Matter process, which is to provide the complete data set for the evaluation by the public of the experience in its totality, or as best as I could present it. I'm still looking at this thing. I mean, the very cultural disposition which says, yeah, we'll have a chat about that, we'll talk about you as if you don't exist. I mean, the complete and absolute, I just think this is like stuff I've been reading about in the medical arena, like when people talk about, you know, they've created terrible events in medical situations, people dying, and they talk about these people as if they're some sort of granules of information or something. They're not human beings. I mean, I am deeply affected. I was annoyed in the first place when it happened, but I'm really deeply affected at the evolution of this absolute disrespect for the concept even of a citizen. Just the concept. Let's forget, it's much larger than just me. Read into this. These are fractals of systemic behaviour ingrained into the public service mentality.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, I want to make it quite clear that my absolute expectation is that I have a right to know what happens to review of how I have been treated, like unacceptably.
Sorry, I'm just listening to myself there, and it might appear to a viewer, and some people think it's something that I think this is some sort of a joke or something. I mean, anybody who understands the difference between comedy and pain will understand how they're so closely tied together. Sometimes the only way to sustain yourself within the envelope of your frustrations tolerance threshold is that you have to turn this into a black comic reality, because this is too much to bear in the raw light of day, this sort of attitude. And if you recognize it as a fractal and just move the beam of the fractal onto any of your other life's experiences, of which, you know, on a daily basis I meet people who are being treated like this, and say, nothing about our systemic thinking in our society sits back and say, look, this is beyond the pale. We shall not operate like that. And nothing in the leadership that I perceive in the country, and today we're going to have Doyle questions about Sergeant McCabe and the way effectively he's been yet kicked around again, and the hiding and obfuscation that will be carried out behind, you know, laws and tribunals, and who privacy and secrecy, the most benign climate for the growth of corruption, as the retired Chief Justice said back in '98, is one of secrecy. So this is not a good thing, but this is far from being a joke. And so it's really, for me, it's about containing my deep rooted righteous anger about this when I behave like this. It's all I can do to keep myself on message.
My argument is I've been treated unexpectedly. I accept that at this point in time you people still feel that you're producing a process of the highest quality. I mean, I leave it. I'd like to leave now with you, Val, to consider and reflect on this conversation, on the contents of this conversation, on the material that I have taken the time to collate and put together with you. I'm asking that you review. It appears that you don't seem to have looked at these marks from the perspective of abnormality, that you may go back and review those, and ask yourself within the context of that, and you have access to the various people, etc. Like, I'm not sure how any citizen could expect to get any investigation into what happened if information has been killed off, or if you people are not willing to look into the possibility that this process was not carried out adequately.
Well, as things stand, Liam,
Yep.
I mean, I know that you've been on to the other people involved. I know you've been on to Kieran Hart and Kieran Dooley and Candy.
Well, and again, primarily because I was being blocked off through the linear process, the proper procedure. Do you absolutely accept that? The only reason Kieran Hart, I went separately to that, and I've known that I wasn't going to him complaining about anything. Otherwise, I simply had to bypass everybody and go to the Padraig Dalton as the DG because I was getting totally blocked from your line environment. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Tony will come back to you then with the findings from his review. So that's I understand you come to you with that this week.
Right. Do you appreciate that? I mean, he's carrying out a review that I do not subscribe to. I do not subscribe to. I've had no pre-information about what he's doing, what the context he's doing, and I believe what he's doing is absolutely no legitimacy. I mean, this is like an investigation into a client's experience without any communication with the client before setting a thing up. I mean, my belief is that basically where you start, your people are going to start. My experience to date gives me evidence to believe that you will produce a desired outcome, work backwards, and create a process to make that credible. That's what I'm sorry. That's based on my experience to date. Just please understand me. Now, if I had made a different experience, if I had gone in from the outside and said, "Okay, Mr. Rogan, yeah, I appreciate people don't get the job, they want feedback. I'm going to give you all the feedback you're entitled to," which would have been the marks. All I've been given up to now would have been given it for starters. There is a review process. We can put you into that if you like. I didn't get any of this. This has all been forced upon you by my repeated revisitation. I mean, I now end up in the role of the unreasonable man. The unreasonable man expects the world, or the reasonable man adapts to the world. The unreasonable man expects the world to adapt to him. Therefore, all progress depends on... Who do you think it depends on? Look it up. Look it up on the internet. Bright writer. All progress depends on the unreasonable man. So I'm now being put into the position of the unreasonable, not because I started from that. I've been forced into this position by the failure to respond adequately by the system, which is claiming that it is beyond any doubts cast on its integrity or unfounded. So my evidence, which I'm trying to put together, is that they're not unfounded. And I keep asking the system, I don't want to fight City Hall. I want to work with City Hall to make the whole process better. I believe that an open system wouldn't be treating me the way it's treating me at the moment.
I understand.
Okay. All right, look, I appreciate your time, and that'll mean you're going to have to work some. I hope you get paid. Do you get paid overtime for this? I mean, that's sorry. No, sorry. I mean, that's an official question. Do what do you call it? The assistant principal officers get paid overtime, or is it salary based only?
No.
You don't. Oh my God! I really hope you. You need to make a case there to all of your new political masters. Okay. Okay, Val. I appreciate it. Thanks very much for calling me back. Appreciate it. Bye bye. All right, good man. Right.
Bye now.
Right.
Okay, that's the end of that conversation I had with Val McBride on the 18th of April. Two things just want to say. At the end there, I talked about what was coming online was an engagement with this guy called Tony Downs. So I need to go ahead and process the recording of my conversation with Tony Downs, and I think it will throw some light on my questions about the legitimacy and professionalism of his process. And just finally, that little bit at the end there, because it's a human conversation, and I'm very grateful to Val for participating in this, because I have no view about Val one way or the other. I think he's probably a decent guy. I think completely morally off, from a philosophical thought point of view, I think completely off beam, completely and absolutely, and systemically so. But the other, I think, these people are writing to me regularly in the evenings. I mean, this letter was written at 17:40 on a Friday evening, and he's telling me working late at night. And he did say to me, and I asked him, "Are you paid overtime for this?" And he said, "No, he's not." And I accepted that as it was. And then a friend of mine spoke to me recently and said, "But I mean, I should have asked him the more complete question: is does he get time off in lieu for this? Is he just working this time for nothing?" But the bigger question I'm asking, my personal submission is this: that if you work in a system with the levels of built-in ineffectiveness that is going on here, absolute shambolic stuff, that I'm not surprised why all this extra time is required. Like, I would love to see these people work at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning and just do what they say to do. On the 24th of February, I asked a very simple question. I'm just going to look at it. 24th of February, 1752. I asked the question with reference to the email below, which was the stain I didn't get the job. Please email me by return all links and references as to my right to appeal this decision and my right to information, read my evaluation scoring matrix, etc. That question is absolutely unequivocal. This is a process which was prepared for interviewing some 10,000 people for 4,600 jobs. By definition, it must have a procedural marks and standards process. The answers to my questions could have been dealt with immediately. That was the 24th of February 2016. I was 60 years of age on that day. I would appear to have aged considerably in the short period between then and the 17th of May. Anyway, for the meantime, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Does It Matter programme from Liam O'Gogan. Goodbye.